Hi, I'm John Byrne with Poets&Quants.
Sandy Kreisberg, the HBS guru.
And we're here with another edition of Handicapping Your Elite MBA Odds. Today we have a 27-year-old male from Zimbabwe.
Yes, who presents the question, can you get into Stanford with a low GPA and
An online college degree.
And an online college degree with, yes, that he presents that question.
Which is a really interesting question and one we've never encountered in all the handicapping series that we've done. Now, he works for PwC in New York. He's been there for 2 years. He worked for PwC in Zimbabwe before that.
No, John, I think
right?
I think you got it backwards.
What do you mean?
Currently working? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for PwC in New York for 2 years. And he has worked for PwC. He started in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
He also worked for a startup in South Africa and an HIV/AIDS nonprofit focused on the sub-Saharan Africa. He has a 720 GPA.
GMAT.
Yes, exactly. We keep screwing it up today.
No, you keep screwing it up.
We have the 720 GMAT with a 44Q. He is a CPA. He passed all the CPA exams, he says, in under 6 months. And now here's the do-gooder stuff that's kind of interesting. He started the foundation, and he's used his savings to pay for the education of several children in Zimbabwe, 2 in Uganda, and 1 in Kenya. He has extensive volunteering experience with low-income families and homeless people in New York City.
Yeah.
But as Sandy pointed out before, his GPA is weak. He doesn't tell us what his GPA is, so it must be pretty weak. And his degree is from what he calls a renowned South African long-distance learning institution. One other little detail in explaining his low GPA, which we don't know, is he says he was suffering from severe depression for over 10 years from high school. Really unusual candidate. What do you think?
Well, let's deal with things that are not unusual as a way to start.
Yeah,
okay.
Good idea.
PwC is a great place to work for a guy like this. As we've noted a million times, if you're an international student, working for PwC is a big deal. If you go to an Ivy League American university, it's much more selective to get a job at a consulting firm like McKinsey, Bain, or BCG, where those big accounting firms, PwC and Ernst & Young, whatever they are, the big 8, 4, whatever's left, those are considered less prestigious. But PwC, for this guy, is an anchor. The school understands that PwC is hard to get into, and the fact that he's been there for 4 years and can hack it.
And in 2 locations.
In 2 locations. He can hack it. In other words, this guy can get dressed every morning, go to work, do his work, get along with superiors, get along with clients. That's really important to a business school.
Yep.
And they wouldn't know that if all you're presenting is you worked for a startup.
Right.
So PwC is a real anchor. The other anchor is the 720.
Yeah.
So that's what this guy has that is not unusual and is very powerful. The Zimbabwe, the Africa thing, Stanford, crazy about Africa. I think
absolutely.
They're focused on it. I don't know if that's been my experience. They may have written that down someplace. They just have a real trope towards Africa, both in their curriculum and their admissions and cooperative programs.
And they're offering a lot of full rides to Africans, actually.
Okay.
And so is Oxford, incidentally, just for everyone else out there.
Africa's good. Zimbabwe, I don't know that much about Africa. That seems like a solid African country. I don't know whether they present I don't know if they're an underserved African country. Where do you think here's a question for you, John, our global expert. What African countries put a lot of kids into American business schools?
I would think South Africa, mainly because of its size, and that's an anomaly on one level because it's so developed. And I think Zimbabwe is a good place for him to be applying from. Plus, the fact that he's helped kids in Uganda and Kenya.
Okay, then the guy has
devoted.
The guy has a tremendous do-gooder record. Okay, so then we're saying, okay, will they blink at the online degree maybe, will they link at the bad performance in the online degree due to what he says is depression? They may. This is another one. Here's another piece of my tough love, okay? And this is just between me and you, folks. And I don't want any blowback from advocates. Telling business schools you have a history of depression is not a good idea. They're not likely to wink at it. You'd be better off saying you overcame addiction, because they believe overcoming addiction is something that is not going to return, and depression might. I don't know what the actual numbers are, but that's kind of their mindset. Would they ever admit that? Of course not. They might not even admit it to themselves, and they're not going to tell you. This guy said that he submitted an optional essay detailing how he struggled with severe depression for 10 years, and that is what impacted his GPA. If I were advising this guy, I would say what impacted his GPA was overcoming a lot of adversity. And I would make maybe a mental health issue more related to a family dynamics issue. I would normalize it that way. So that would be my advice to this guy. But he's a likable guy. You like him on the page.
Yeah,
so
totally.
They may be able to wink at that.
So Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, Columbia. Those are his 4 schools.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. This guy's got a wild card chance at Stanford if he can execute perfectly and if they believe that he is going to be an impactful leader in Africa based on a track record, based on the PwC and the 720.
He could very well be the first MBA candidate to get in at Stanford
with an online
degree.
Yeah.
He actually could be.
Yep, and they'd be open to that.
Yeah. So his odds at Stanford, what do you think, given their emphasis on Africa as a recruitment ground for MBA candidates, and given this
30%.
And the do-gooder thing?
Yeah,
I mean, come on,
30% with very solid execution.
Yeah.
In other words, this is a guy that the Stanford essay, what matters to you most, he's got to get very into that very fast. This essay could count for that guy. He could make his case in that essay.
Harvard.
35%, 40%, depending on the execution. This guy's execution, just the way he fills out the application, what his recommenders say, how he can comply with the formal requirements of applying, he's got to make that look really solid, really professional, much more so in this case. There's a lot of questions about this guy, and they want assurance. They're willing to meet this guy halfway. He's got to meet them halfway and present very professionally.
Columbia and Wharton, probably same.
Well, this is where it gets wacky.
Yeah.
Columbia and Wharton don't want to buy into the low stats. It's going to cost them in the rankings, and then you're saying, gee, Sandy, you're such a hard guy. You know, obviously, Columbia and Wharton make exceptions, but whether they make an exception for him, I don't know.
So you might give him the same odds at Columbia and Wharton as you would at Harvard then?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
because of that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, you didn't mention Stanford. We think, oh, no, you did mention Stanford. We think you got a really good shot there, and you could very well be the first person ever to get into the Stanford MBA program with an online degree.
I think this guy said someplace, I'm not sure if
he's a round 2 applicant.
He's a round 2 applicant, so he's going to get his results. Yeah,
Yep.
So this guy's app is in.
Yeah. So good luck to you, and listen, come back to us.
Let us know what
happened.
happens.
Let us know what happened. We're really curious about you. We wish you the best of luck. And for all the rest of you out there, if you're interested in getting an assessment, just put in your raw stats in your profile under the comments, and Sandy will get to it. Right, Sandy?
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Good luck to all of you. Thanks for watching.